Right now, we are on the industry keynote on data management in the cloud. And we have with us Executive Director, DBS, Amit Varma joining us. Well, Amit, being the Executive Director with the DBS Bank India, and he also acts as a group business head and head of technology within the tech and ops group. Over a career spanning 22 plus years, Amit has positively influenced the financial service industry as a technology pioneer, business leader, organization builder, innovator, digital transformation catalyst, leading technology functions across US, Europe, and India. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to invite Amit on the screen. Over to you, Amit.
Thank you, Bhavna, for those kind words. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's always good to listen to people talking about you and then wonder, is this me? They're talking about it, they're talking about somebody else. So thanks for those kind words, Bhavna. So yeah, if I could, everybody, just wanted to quickly give you a quick overview, right? And the term overview is appropriate over here because no matter who, I'm sure will not be able to do justice to data management in the cloud in 15 minutes. So I'll put in my best foot forward, as they say. I'm more than happy to take any questions offline and go from there. So let me just start sharing my screen, and we'll go with that. Okay, are you able to see my screen? Bhavna, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, I'm able to. I believe we'll just have to do it in the presentation mode. That's
sure.
About it.
Yeah. Yep, that'll be great. Okay, so guys, as I said, right, this is a very vast topic, so I'm not really expecting this to be a very detailed conversation. But as I said, if there are any queries or questions, my coordinates and details are down there. Please do feel free to connect with me on Gmail or on LinkedIn, right? And I'll be more than happy to share insights and go through any details that you would have. So what are we looking to cover today, right? At a very basic level, what I wanted to talk about was what I personally view, right, as being the 6 key pillars of a cloud data management solution or consideration, right? So that is one thing that I wanted to talk through. And then secondly, I wanted to just give you my 2 cents, right, on 8 key success factors, which I think are certainly important towards managing data in the cloud, right? And again, this is my personal take on it. I'm sure there will be others with other takes and views on it. So this is just my perception and view of this, guys. Just to be clear. So what if I was to imagine, right, cloud data management as being a house or a building or your favorite structure, I consider 6 key pillars to be part of it, right? The first and foremost that I would look at as part of that, right, as part of this entire cloud data management process or exercise, is classification, right? By classification, again, there are various varieties, but the one I'm going to focus on in this context is confidentiality, right? Is your data public, right? Is it internal? Is it confidential? Is it restricted? Because based on this consideration, your entire cloud data management approach will change and vary, right? So if anybody is looking to embark on a cloud-based data management journey, then please do look at this first element very carefully. Because the last thing you want to do, for example, as a retail organization, is have all your restricted data put on a public domain without the right controls in place. And by restricted data, by confidential data, in this case, we can potentially be talking about credit card information, right? Imagine what's going to happen if it's in public domain with the right security controls in place. So again, a very key factor is classification of the data, right? Which is the first step that you could be looking at. Some people might also call this in profiling. So classification or profiling of the data, right? Another key element to look at is the data variables. So things such as the type of the data, right? Is it structured data? Is it unstructured data? right? Is it data which has a lot of volume to it? So are we talking about, I was kind enough to be on a panel, right? I was fortunate enough to be on a panel with the head of technology from NCPI, if you were there listening to an early conversation, and he was talking about 1.6 billion transactions in a day, right? UPI transactions in a day. Now just imagine what kind of data management solution would need to basically cloud-based data management solution he would need to solve that challenge that he has of scale, right? If for a solution like that, we go in for a traditional RDBMS, which is not going to scale, then you have basically nailed your entire data journey even before it started. So again, a very key factor is to identify what is the volume of the data you're talking about, right? Secondly is velocity, right? How frequently is it changing? How is it moving? That is something that you need to figure out as well. Variety, again, I referred earlier in terms of data types, right? But variety is another element there as well, right? Are we talking about structured data? Because if you're talking about structured data, you could put it in RDBMS. You're talking about unstructured data, a NoSQL database is probably a better place for you to put your data in the cloud. So again, these data variables are certainly, and like these other data variables are very key. The classification part is certainly very key to ensure that you get your cloud data management correct, right? After that, the second pillar that I view there, right, is data design. Anybody who's done IT of any sort will know that if you don't get your design principles correct and your design correct, then you are going to have a recipe for disaster, right? Because again, in this case, it's about architecture to drill down from the design part of it, right? Architecture. Are we talking about a hybrid cloud model, for example, right? Are we talking about a private cloud specifically, right? Are we talking about multi-cloud? So what kind of cloud model are you talking about? And what kind of architectures are you talking about? From a data perspective, right? Are you talking about batch-based architectures? Or are you talking about real-time big data architectures like Lambda architecture, right? Or Kappa architecture? So again, it's very key to get that architecture part right. And not just for a subset of your ecosystem, for your entire ecosystem end to end, because again, that's where the failure will be. If you just look at narrowly one silo to say, I'm only going to look at my sources, or I'm only going to look at my master data and not look at my metadata, right? I'm not going to look at my application. I'm not going to look at my interfaces and interoperability. Then it's going to be again a recipe for disaster. So the key part here is look at your design end to end. Look at your architecture end to end, right? Right from master data, metadata, application data, interoperability, even infrastructure underneath it, right? It is very key to look at all of these different elements which together constitute this design element of any cloud data management solution, because that is going to be your foundation stone towards success, right, in relation to managing cloud data or cloud-based data. Thirdly, again, very important, goes to the implementation. So what are system technologies are you going to go in for, right? How are you going to look at your sourcing? Right? For example, to give you another example, if you are looking to do real-time big data management in the cloud and you go in for traditional queue-based systems, that might not be able to scale. Like a system, a distributed system like Kafka, messaging system like Kafka. So again, the point being, your sourcing approach needs to be in line with your overall architecture and your requirements as well. Again, going back to the point around your classification, your data variables. Right? So sourcing is very important. If you're generating the data internally, again, that mechanism that you have in there for generating it and connecting to the rest of the ecosystem is important as well. Then comes the pipeline, right? These pipelines is how you do connect your data pockets, right? Between your master data, between your application data, between your interfaces, your client channels, your consumption channels, your application channels. How do you connect all of those? That is what this pipeline is about. And again, the example I gave about messaging systems like Kafka there for real-time big data is an example of a pipeline. So you need to get that pipeline piece correctly as well, right? Then comes the storage part. You've got the best pipelines in place, you've got the best systems, best architectures in place, but you make a wrong decision in terms of storage, right? So again, going back to the point around unstructured data and structured data, if you are looking to go in for unstructured data and you do a traditional RDBMS, again, for you to take your data out of that RDBMS itself will be very cumbersome, even if it is in the cloud. So storage mechanisms are very key, right? In the cloud, you have got 2 or 3 different options. Are you talking about, objects? Are you talking about files, right? So what kind of, what kind of storage mechanisms in the cloud are you talking about? That is something that you will need to go in for as well. So again, bear that in mind, right? Secondly, or not secondly, but fourthly over here, transactional, right? Systems. What kind of systems are you having in place to drive operations through a system, a payment transaction, for example, in the case of a payment system? So how are you managing the transactions in a system, and the entire system technology behind it needs to be in sync as well. So does the application or usage as well, right? For example, if you have consumers, right, looking to get real-time information on their payment transaction. Again, I'm talking about payment transactions because, I do, as you can imagine, having worked as a head of technology for Citibank, I do have quite some experience in the areas. But going back to this example, if you're talking about payment transactions, right, and you're looking to get insights, AI insights, to say whether a transaction is a rogue transaction or not, right, from your AI-based model, which is hosted on a cloud, and you put in really lagging, again, going back to my previous example, say an object-oriented archaic interface in place between your serving layer and your speed layer, or your client interface, then it's not really going to give you the performance that you need. So again, application technology is very key over there as well. And so is infrastructure, right? We all know why infrastructure is key over there. So again, the point being, system technology that you put in place is very key and is a key primary pillar of your entire data management approach in the cloud. So that's one, right? Next one, security. Very often, right, people cite the example that, oh, I'm not very confident, I'm not very comfortable putting my data in the cloud, whether it is public or private. I don't want to put it off-prem. A key concern there, right, if you really drill it down, is to their risk appetite. And the risk appetite actually will be driven by the kind of security controls that they have in place. So if somebody gets their security controls in place, whether it is in relation to data protection, whether it is in relation to still or transit data, internal infrastructure, all the different types that you see here, right? That will enable them to get to a stage where they can successfully do cloud-based data management. So again, getting a security is very important for this to work successfully, right? Governance. So having the security, having the tools, having the design, having the classification of that correctly done, but nobody is monitoring your data from a process perspective, from a tools and technology perspective, from a people and how they're utilizing it, from a regulatory perspective, from a compliance and legal perspective. So just earlier today on this show itself, I had the privilege of having one of our key stakeholders from the government of India talk about legal compliance challenges when it gets to doing regulatory compliance for remote work in the cloud. And he was telling me and telling us all that if somebody is enabling remote work in the cloud in this current COVID scenario, they automatically become an enabler, which happens to fall in a certain bracket of the Indian law system. So again, if somebody is going and doing cloud-based data management, but not really looking into legal considerations and the obligations they have for that, then they will again be calling disaster at their doorsteps. So governance along all these axes is certainly very key as well, right? And finally, quality and performance, right? You need to focus on durability of your data. Doesn't matter whether it is off-prem, on-prem, RDBMS, NoSQL, it needs to be durable across all these different systems. Privacy needs to be taken care of, availability, integrity, right? Retention and recovery is very important as well, because what will happen if your systems have failed for some reason? So again, retention and recovery is very key over there as well. So in short, guys, right, in my view, these 6 pillars are very, very key to ensuring that you are successfully managing the cloud-based data. And I would really highly recommend you looking at these 6 pillars in great detail and ensuring that they can get taken care of, right? And then finally, if you were to ask me, what are the 8 key success factors? Your question would be, Amit, you told us about those 6 pillars with a plethora of variables to look after. If you were to give me 8 key factors that you think are key, what would those be? And this is what I would say, guys, in that case, right? Data confidentiality. You need to look at that part very, very importantly right at the very start, because if you don't, you could be exposing, as I said earlier, potentially your entire credit card data to a public audience, which you don't want. Believe me, nobody wants that to happen, cloud-based model, right? What kind of model are you going to use? Is it hybrid cloud? Is it multi-cloud? What are you going to do to make sure that it is the right model for you? So again, there's no one size fits all. It depends on your organizational need. Again, earlier today, I was listening to, and on a panel, the head of one of the leading manufacturers from a watch perspective, and he was saying, I've got different types of data in my system. I've got manufacturing data, I've got customer data, I've got security surveillance data. So he's got various data sets, and different data sets have their own cloud based models that work. So his solution in the end was a multi-cloud model, hybrid based, So again, the point being, you need to get your cloud model correct, because if you don't have that, again, a recipe for disaster. Privacy and security, again, I've talked about this enough in the last one, so I'm not going to repeat this one. But as you can see, in this case, I've talked about the whole entity's privacy and security. There is no such thing as I look at security in my cloud service provider and forget my internal security considerations within my in-house. Because believe it or not, the biggest scams, the biggest exposures very often have been from people from inside the organization rather than outside. So even if your cloud service provider is giving you foolproof, airtight security, and your internal controls are not in place and are not being implemented adequately, you are exposed and will be exposed. So security and privacy is not just in the external environment and ecosystem, it's internal as well, and the periphery between the internal and perimeter between the internal and external as well, and through your entire network of data that you have, right? So that is what is certainly key to be looked after. Data architecture, I think I talked about this earlier on as well. Design is important, that's why data architecture is important. Client journeys, right? So you might build the best systems, but if they're not aligned to what your client is looking for, no use. So client journeys are very important and need to be taken care of at the outset itself, not an afterthought, right? So don't go to a SaaS-based solution or PaaS-based solution and then start wondering, okay, now I'm in the cloud. Now what do I do to get my clients on the system? No. Think about the client journey at the very outset, at the very beginning, because then that will ensure that your client journeys are aligned to where your cloud-based data management and your entire infrastructure and your systems and technology is moving towards. So client journeys is certainly very important. Business continuity planning. Again, as I said, plan for the rainy day. There might be a day where despite your best efforts, your system has been compromised. What do? Backup. How soon can you retain, can you recover from that, right? Are you having the right controls in place for your entire workforce can keep working on this rainy day scenario? So again, business continuity planning, and as part of that planning, implementation and checks and bounds and controls are very key as well. So BCP certainly is very key to ensure that you're successful as well, right? Compliance processes, again, the example I said earlier in terms of regulatory compliance, legal compliance, so on and so forth. Make sure that your processes are robust. You have the right governance mechanisms in place to make sure that all of this is taken care of as well. And finally, people, internally and externally, right? Because this is the human factor, guys. Everybody talks about systems and technologies as if the people who are using them all the time are robots. The fact is, no. It's people. And if you've not factored your own people, your workforce impacts, if you have not aligned your own teams to support you in your journey, if you have not aligned your management, executive management people, your entire people ecosystem, right, to your journey into the cloud, you will not be successful. So do make sure that you look into that element as well, right? So that's pretty much all that I had. I'm really thankful for your time, and I'll open up to any questions, if any, at this stage. Thanks, Varma.
Thank you so much, Amit. What an incredible way to end. And we are going to be getting the next session, the speakers right there. So thank you so much, Amit, for your valuable time once again.
Thank you all. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.